The Other Side of the Sun by Madeleine L'Engle, 2-3. At dinner, it was as though the tension between Uncle Hoadley and Honoria had never existed, on the surface, at least. I was not sure what lay under Uncle Hoadley's pleasant manner, and Honoria's impassive face was even more foreign and unfathomable. Uncle Hoadley talked lightly, amusingly, as though there had been no warring forces out on the veranda. But there had been. When I was a small boy, I used to spend weeks at a time with my Hoadley grandparents, my mother's family. They had one of the fine plantations in Somerville. That's just outside Charleston, Stella, and has some of the loveliest places in the South. Most fine houses were built with the kitchen and house servants' quarters connected to the main house by a lattice breezeway. For a long time, it didn't seem quite decent to nice people to have either the kitchen or the bathrooms directly connected with the house, and certainly not in it. When you put it that way, Aunt Olivia interrupted, you make me feel bourgeoisie not to go outdoors to perform my natural functions. Olivia! Mary Desborough cried. Uncle Hoadley continued, reaching out with one calming hand to press Aunt Mary Desborough's fingers. I used to love to go through the breezeway to talk to my grandmother's cook, old Bounty. Everything about Bounty fascinated me. Grandpa had an iron pump in the breezeway where we got our water, and I remember seeing Bounty with a big tin dipper filled with cane syrup and kerosene, to which she added a little water from the pump. It was for her health, she said, and she lived to be over 100. Nobody knew exactly how old she really was. I wanted to try some of it, but she wouldn't let me. Just outside the dining room pantry, there was a big storeroom for food. In one corner was a barrel of brown sugar, not the kind of dry rock we get today. It was always moist, and the sugar came out in chunks and oozing syrup. It was better than any candy, and when I was good, I was allowed a big spoonful. I listened, delighted, absorbing this strange world from which Terry had come, which had nourished him, patted and shaped him into the man who had made me his wife. Finbar, the old dog, walked through the dining room and paused beside Aunt Olivia. No, Auntie, no Finbar, Uncle Hoadley said, and the old beast, with a wistful sniff toward Aunt Olivia's dinner, moved stiffly on out to the kitchen. Now, Stella, honey, Aunt Irene said, tell us all. I smiled. What kind of all? Everything. Everything, say everything, saith Epictetus, Aunt Olivia announced, hath two handles, the one to be held, the other not. A winter's tale, Aunt Mary Desborough responded. No. Yes, it is. I'm positive it is. Look it up, then. I don't need to. Well, it's not. It's Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. It doesn't count, then. We were playing Shakespeare. Aunties, a toast, Uncle Hoadley intervened and raised his wine glass. To Stella, welcome. To Stella, welcome, the aunts echoed. Sometimes something in me relaxed at the warmth of their words and the kindness in their eyes. Aunt Olivia whispered to me, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Aunt Irene, smiling warmly at me, began asking eager little questions about my father, about the Dowlers. I soon learned that Aunt Irene enjoyed being able to talk about Lord and Lady Dowler, my niece's kin, you know, or saying my niece's father was a fellow of All Souls, that's in Oxford, you know, Oxford in England. I answered her as best I could that first evening. I really don't know very much, Aunt Irene. Father and I lived alone, and he didn't concern himself about ancestors or family tree. Since we all come from the same trees originally, anyhow, Aunt Olivia said, I think your father is very sensible. It certainly doesn't seem to me to be very important which branch of ape one has descended from. Olivia, Aunt Mary Desborough protested, if you're going to be sacrilegious. All right, you go right on thinking you're an act of God created in his image, and I'll go on thinking I'm descended from an ape. When you look in the mirror, I should think you'd feel pretty discouraged. I wouldn't be happy to look at myself and think my face is an imago Dei. It wouldn't make me feel I'd done very well by God, but when I look in the mirror and think I'm descended from an ape, I think I've done remarkably well. Auntie, that is enough. This was the first time Uncle Hoadley had raised his voice, and here he differed from my father, who would have been amused and delighted by Aunt Olivia. She subsided momentarily, then pointed to the portrait over the sideboard, an austere-looking gentleman with white side-whiskers. That is our father, Theron Rainier. He was ambassador to the court of France under the 3rd Napoleon, before the war, of course. It was while we were there that our brother Theron met the young noblewoman Marguerite Dominique de la Valeur and married her. Olivia, Aunt Mary Densborough said, for one who has been discussing the unimportance of the family apes, you are showing an inordinate interest in geology. Who ever said apes were supposed to be consistent? We learn by paradox and contradiction, and why not get Stella acquainted with her new family? I'll wager all Terry did was confuse her. He didn't have time to do much else, I said. He had to leave so much sooner than we expected. Did he tell you about James? Yes, but I'm not sure who. James is our cousin. He and Theron were like David and Jonathan. Nyssa belonged to James, Aunt Mary Desborough said, wistfully. You'll meet James on Sunday, Stella. He has a place a few miles up the beach from us, little Nyssa. Nyssa is gone. Uncle Hoadley sounded sharp, a sharpness for which I was not prepared. No, Aunt Olivia cried. Not while Des and I are alive. Not while James and Xenia are alive. Not as long as Illyria stands. Clive moved silently around the table, breaking the tension, holding a silver serving dish out to Aunt Olivia. All Terry's favorite thing, she said. Honoria's eggplant. I do hope you like eggplant. I've never had it before. This is magnificent. And stuffed mushrooms. We were always afraid Terry and Ronnie would find a poisoned mushroom sometime and eat it, but they never did. Honoria picked these, didn't she, Clive? No, Miss Olivia. Ronnie picked them. Aunt Irene turned her conversation back to my father. You say he was considerably older than you, Stella, honey? He was almost 83 when he died, though that was hard to believe. I'm 83, Aunt Mary Densborough said. That's hard to believe, too. And he was in holy orders? Wherever did she get that idea? He was a philosopher, Aunt Irene, and an atheist. Aunt Irene looked shocked, but continued bravely. Then your upbringing was a little unusual. It was happy. Clive, Aunt Olivia asked, would you be kind enough to bring me a saucer of cream, please? Auntie, what do you want cream for? Not for me, Irene, I assure you, not for you. Nor for you. The kitten's hungry. He's nibbling my toes, and his little teeth are sharp. Clive bent down to pick up the kitten. He whispered so that the others could not hear, but I was sitting next to Aunt Olivia. Put your slippers back on, Miss Olivia, at once. I decided I was going to enjoy getting to love this old lady. In a louder voice, Clive said, I'll give the kitten something in the kitchen, Miss Irene. The kitten nuzzled into the old man's neck, and they went through the swinging door. Aunt Mary Desborough pointed to a charming portrait of a small boy in a sailor suit. Look, Stella, that's Terry over the serving table. Aren't his eyes beautiful? I looked at the portrait of the blond and solemn little boy, at the vague myopic eyes which came into focus only behind the thick lenses of his spectacles, and the Rainier's short-sightedness hadn't been discovered until he went away to school. But yes, his eyes were beautiful. The child in the portrait was a promise of the man I had married. It was only this past winter, wasn't it, Aunt Irene pursued, that you met Terry? I looked across the table at the portrait. And I'm still meeting him. That's Hoadley over the sea chest, Aunt Mary Densborough continued. When he was at Harvard Law School, Terry looks a little like him, don't you think? But all Hoadley's features are elongated, like that painting you like, Livy. El Greco, what are we having for dessert? I do hope it's something special. Stella, honey, Aunt Irene said, you do know, don't you, how happy we are to have you with us. It's too bad there aren't any strawberries. Auntie! But we do have such good strawberries, and I thought Stella would like... I love strawberries, I said quietly. And I do thank you, all of you, for taking me in this way, a stranger. Aunt Olivia rushed in. Here in Gloucestershire, these things, or these high, wide hills and rough, even ways. Shakespeare, and it is Richard the Third. Aunt Mary Densborough thumped the table. I am a stranger here in Gloucester. 20 pounds for me. 20 points for me. 19. 20. Clive came in with a tray, which he set down on the sideboard. From it he took 2 saucers, the first for Aunt Irene, the second for Aunt Mary Desborough. Aunt Olivia peered at her sister's plate. Oh, pineapple ice. Clive put another saucer in front of her, then carefully one before me. What's that? Aunt Irene asked. What are you giving Miss Stella? There were just enough figs for one serving, Miss Irene, Clive said. Aunt Mary Desborough half rose from her chair. But Clive! Sit down, Des, Aunt Olivia said triumphantly. Coffee was served on the veranda. We waved our palm leaf fans back and forth, not so much against the heat now as against the insects which fluttered about, strange, delicate creatures with long legs and translucent wings unlike anything I had ever seen in England. Sugar, honey? Aunt Irene asked me. Cream? Clive passed me the small white and gold cup. His jacket shone white. The rest of him faded into the shadows of the veranda. I'm going in to get my knitting, Aunt Mary Densborough announced. No, Clive, I want to do it myself. I'll be right back. 3 sugars, please, Irene. 2 is not enough. You never remember. Aunt Irene leaned across the table to me. The aunties, she whispered. You'll have to forgive them. They're quite senile. Hoadley and I are only glad we can take care of them. Aunt Olivia had been rocking placidly, slowly waving her palm leaf fan to and fro. She stopped. Clive and Honoria take care of us. Auntie? Aunt Irene started. Clive and Honoria, make no bones about that. This is Honoria's house, Irene. I wouldn't forget that if I were you. Honoria allows you to spend your summers here. Aunt Irene rose in agitation. Auntie! Uncle Hoadley, lighting a cigar at the far end of the veranda, moved towards us. Miss Olivia, Clive bent to the old lady, your coffee, half-hot milk. Illyria belonged to Honoria? Aunt Mary Desborough returned to the veranda with her knitting. Heat lightning flickered over the ocean. The slow pounding of the waves mingled with a distant rumble of thunder. The storm Aunt Olivia had predicted was moving toward us. I sipped my coffee. It tasted odd, probably the sulphur water. Beyond the shadows of the porch it was still light. The sun had gone behind the house, but the wet sand near the ocean shimmered with the rosy afterglow, and the ocean itself had a luminescent quality I had never seen in England. Honoria brought out a shallow dish of some kind of pungent oil with a wick in it and set it on the porch rail. The flame burned low, with blue-green flickerings. Uncle Hoadley said, I hope you don't object to the odor, Stella. It does help to keep the insects away, and my cigar serves somewhat the same purpose. Will you allow me? When we had the hospital in Nyssa, Aunt Mary Densborough said, Mado brought in a woman from the town, from one of those places. We thought it was dreadful of Mado until she made us realize that Kara was the best nurse we had. She had the gift of healing in her hands. She could touch a soldier who was delirious and screaming with pain, and he would become quiet and sleep like a baby all night, far more peacefully than if he had been given morphine. And of course, during the war, drugs were hard to come by. After we'd had a particularly bad night, Carrie used to smoke funny little brown cigarettes. It was your cigar made me remember, Hoadley. and they seemed to give her so much relaxation and pleasure I envied her. Uncle Hoadley pulled out an engraved silver case. I got a fresh supply today at the club. Like to try one, Auntie? Aunt Mary Densborough gave a little shriek of pleased laughter. Oh, Hoadley, you are such a one for a joke. I'm serious, Auntie. The old lady shrank back in her rocking chair. Oh, no, Hoadley, I couldn't. Not now. It's too late. Then she said to me with a note of defiance, we nursed Union soldiers at Nyssa, too. There was a lot of criticism, but Mado insisted. Everybody said there'd be trouble. But I guess when a man is badly enough hurt, he doesn't care who's in the next bed. Oh, we were happy there, all of us. We were a family, white and black, but we never got anything but brickbats. People are always suspicious of that kind of happiness. Aunt Irene sighed impatiently, and I guessed that Aunt Mary Desborough often favored them with her reminiscences. Ron has it, Aunt Olivia said. Has what? Aunt Irene asked. The gift of healing in his hands? Aunt Irene sighed again. That's enough, Auntie. But Aunt Olivia leaned toward me. Ron is a doctor, a qualified medical doctor. Ron, the one who carried my boxes upstairs. A fine doctor. Auntie, I said that is enough. Aunt Irene's voice held a note of inexplicable malice as she asked, and what did you do, Auntie? Well, Aunt Des was so busy nursing the wounded. Aunt Mary Desborough sprang in swiftly. Olivia has always been frail. She did what she could. My father, when I was a child, had tried to teach me perspective. I would need a lot of perspective to sort out all the unexpectedness since my arrival in Illyria. What, after all, had I expected? Something not quite so foreign and bewildering, something which would bring me closer to my husband. But the more I saw of this alien land and its people from whom he had come, the more he was becoming a stranger to me. I needed all at once to be alone. I didn't want to suggest going to bed, in case the argument about my room should come up again. I had no intention of shifting rooms. If I felt certain of one thing only, it was that my room was meant especially for me. I rose. Is it all right if I take a little walk on the beach? Uncle Hoadley looked surprised. Of course, my dear. Irene and I will go with you. No, please, I would like to be alone. I could not help it if I was rude. But Uncle Hoadley, bless him, understood, as my father would have understood. He smiled his tired and gentle smile. All this must be strange and confusing to you. You'd like to walk on the beach and sort things out in your lovely little head, wouldn't you? Very well, my dear. But walk up the beach rather than down, if you please. Sometimes we get an unpleasant element in San Feliz on weekends. And Stella, don't be long. I won't. You'll get used to our summer thunder showers. We have one almost every evening. Sometimes they are more violent than usual, and we seem to be brewing a big one for tonight. But don't be afraid. We're so accustomed to them that we pay very little attention. I'm not afraid of storms. Also, my dear, night falls very quickly here, not like your long English twilights. Yes, Terry told me. I ran down the ramp to the beach. And that is the end of the third section.